Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a brand new building just after sunset. The concrete still smells fresh, the paint is barely dry, exit signs glow in perfect rows down the hallway. Sprinklers hang exactly where the drawings say they should. A flawless, clean, modern structure, at least on the surface. Now look deeper. Behind one wall, a fire stop was rushed. Above a ceiling tile, a cable tray was overloaded. A smoke damper was installed backwards, but no one checked. It passed the inspection anyway. Stamp, signature, approval done. Everyone inside believes they are safe. But the truth sits quietly in those hiding spaces waiting unnoticed. And in a real fire, the buildings would not obey the paperwork. It will obey physics, heat, smoke, and time. By morning, if something went wrong, the headline would read, "Officials investigating why fire spread so quickly." But we already know the answer. It's the same reason repeated across decades, across industries, across tragedies. Someone follows the code, but not the care. Someone met the minimum when the situation demanded more. Hello again, my friends. I am Pavlo Lapikov, and this is Fire Safety Philosophy Podcast. I'm not just an engineer behind a desk, I'm a field engineer and still deep down a fire officer at heart. I walked through buildings that were fully compliant and still unsafe. I've seen systems pass every requirement and fail in every way that matters. That's why this show exists, because I care about lives. Tonight we ask a question at the very core of fire safety. One the code books will never answer. Why can codes measure care? And what happens to people when the minimums become the maximums anyone is willing to give? Alright, let's take a quick break and then we'll jump right back into fire safety philosophy. This podcast is brought to you by Fireheart Fire Safety Marketing Agency. At Fireheart, we help fire safety professionals, companies, and educators share the mission with the world. From bold posters to unforgettable campaigns, we turn safety into culture. Because saving lives isn't just about systems, it's about communication. Learn more at fireheartfsma.com. So, let's back to the show. So, let me slow this down. Every fire professional had that moment when the illusion breaks. For me, it happened years ago during a routine walkthrough. New buildings, everything looked perfect, clean, polished, approval. Sprinklers spaced right, detectors exactly where the code said. All the drawings stamped and filled. But in one mechanical room, the fire starter was wrong. Wrong material, wrong texture, the kind of thing you notice only if you truly care. I pointed it out. The contractor just shrugged and said, "It passed, didn't it? Don't worry, it's compliant." That was the moment something shifted for me, a small crack in the belief system. Because the code measured the installation, but it didn't measure the care. Let's be honest, codes matter. They save lives. Without them, the world would burn. But codes aren't perfect. They are not written by angels. They are written by committees, designed to set minimums acceptable risk. Codes really only do four things: set minimums requirements, ensure consistency, establish legal boundaries, define what's acceptable. That's it. Codes do not guarantee proper installation, quality, maintenance, responsibility, or that anyone doing the job actually cares. The code measures dimensions, not decisions. Thickness, not salt. Clearness, not conscience. And when everything revolves around minimums, the minimum slowly becomes the maximum anyone is willing to give. I've seen this everywhere. Canada, Europe, in industrial sites or high rises. A contractor says, we follow the code. A designer says the drawing meets the standard. An inspector says it passed by my checklist. Compliance becomes a shield, a way to say, I am covered. I did my part. But let me ask you, if the system works on paper, but fails in life, what are we celebrating? When someone says we met the code, they really mean we met the minimum. And minimums don't save people. Human choices do. Let me paint a picture. A renovated apartment building opens. Families moved in. Kids tap the elevators. The newspaper calls it a modern safe up to code. But above the third floor ceiling, a 2-meter section of fire-rated drywall was removed for a cable tray and never replaced. The drawing still showed it. The inspector never opened the ceiling. Why would he? The paperwork was perfect. 6 months later, a kitchen fire starts. Heat builds. Smoke pushed into the hallway. Then it finds a hidden gap. The one no one cared enough to fix. Fire doesn't follow codes. Fire follows openings. The spread was so fast, residents had seconds, not minutes. By sunrise, investigators stood outside the charred building saying, cause still under investigation. But the real cause was simple. Someone did the job, just not with care. Alright, let's take a quick break and then we'll jump right back into fire safety philosophy. This episode is powered by Fireheart Fire Safety Marketing Agency. We believe safety should be seen, heard, and remembered. That's why Fireheart creates powerful campaigns and visuals that don't just meet compliance, they inspire culture. If you ever thought, how do I make people actually care about safety? Fireheart is the answer. Check out fireheartfsma.com. So, let's back to the show. Here is the uncomfortable truth about codes. The moment you set a minimum, the industry treats it as the standard. It's no longer at least this much. It becomes only this much. Why? Because minimums are cheap. They are fast, they are easy to defend, they make projects profitable, and they are legally safe even when they are not physically safe. Compliance gives permission. Care gives protection. And somewhere along the line, we mix the two up. You can write care into a codebook. You can mandate dimension, inspection, documentation, stamp, signature, or seal drawings. But you can't mandate the moment that truly save people. The worker who takes 10 extra minutes to fix a fire stop properly. The engineer who redesigns a layout because the room feels wrong. The inspector who checked above the ceiling even when it's not required. The person who says, this meets code, but it doesn't meet my standard. That's care. And no code can measure it. Care is invisible. Care is voluntary. Care is a choice, not a regulation. History is full of fires where buildings met code. The system was compliant. The paperwork correct. The installation followed the standard. And still people died. Why? Because codes can't predict every shortcut. They can't capture real-world behavior. They are not written for the best case. They are written for the minimum everyone can agree on. Fire doesn't negotiate minimums. Fire finds weaknesses, not approvals. Let me be honest. The biggest problem in fire safety isn't bad codes or bad engineering. It's something far more human. People stop caring. When safety becomes a routine, danger becomes invisible. When systems feel familiar, people trust them blindly. When compliance becomes a habit, critical thinking disappears. Codes can measure pride, integrity, training, leadership, fatigue, pressure, budget cuts, deadlines, culture. These are the factors that decide whether a building rises above the minimum or sits exactly at it. And we all know minimum is often not enough. Let's make this real, something you can actually do. Here is what measures care. Ask better questions. Not just, is it allowed? But why was done is this way. Go above minimums. Not everywhere. Just where it truly matters. Think like fire. If I were smoke, where would I go? Inspect beyond the checklist. If something feels off, it probably is. Slow the work down. Rushed installations are unsafe installations. Treat every building like your family will live there, because someone's family will. Building culture, not just compliance. Safety must be a value, not a requirement. Care enters the system through people, not through codebooks. Alright, let's take a quick break and then we'll jump right back into fire safety philosophy. A big thank you to today's sponsor, Fireheart Fire Safety Marketing Agency. Fireheart exists because fire safety messages deserve modern tools. Posters, training programs, creative campaigns. Fireheart makes safety unforgettable. Visit fireheartfsma.com to learn more. So, let's back to the show. Buildings are getting more complex. Fire loads are higher. Materials burn faster. Systems rely heavily on automation. One failure can cascade instantly. And yet our codes still measure minimums. No judgment, not intention, not care. That's why tragedies keep happening in buildings that are technically compliant. The code protects the design. Only people protect the occupants. So, my friends, fire safety has never been about passing inspection or collecting certificates. It has never lived in checklists or in the comfort of meets requirements. It has always been about people, the ones you drink coffee with in the morning, the ones waiting for you at home, the ones who sleep under the assumption that someone, maybe you or me, made the right choices long before the smoke ever rises. When we say meets code, we are not just stamping a document. We are making a statement about what life is worth. And whether we notice it or not, we are choosing a minimum, even though human life is never a minimum thing. That's why safety must live beyond compliance. In awareness is intention, professionalism, and those quiet, unseen moments where someone chooses to care even when no one is watching. Because a compliant building isn't always safer, and a system that works on paper doesn't always work in the fire. Codes can guide us, but they can't replace us. They can't measure pride, integrity, courage, or conscience. They can't measure care. So can we ever write care into a codebook? Probably not. But every time someone says the minimum is enough, we take a step forward toward real safety. This was episode 11, Why Codes Can Measure Care. Before the next episode, think about this. If your safety depends on rules, why do those rules still fail to measure the thing that matters most, the human heart behind them? If today made you think, subscribe, share and leave a review. That's how this movement grows. I am Pavlo Lapikov. Care about life, think beyond compliance. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay safe, and never trust safety just because it's written on the label. Take care, guys. Bye bye.